Despite an ombudsman's best efforts, sometimes resolutions don't last. When this happens, an ombudsman tries a different strategy. Ombudsman Gloria Torres follows up with a resident, Brian Brashear, regarding his right to receive visitors at the time he chooses. Gloria stays resident-directed as she offers to readdress Mr. Brashear's complaint.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brashear. It's Gloria from the Ombudsman program. May I come in?
Yes, come in. Would you close the door?
Sure.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Is everything okay, Mr. Brashear? You seem troubled.
It's about the evening visits from my friends. They are still trying to keep my friends from visiting me.
I'm so sorry. When we spoke to the administrator last, he said there would be no more interference from staff on your rights to visitors. Can you tell me what's going on?
Some of the staff, especially at night, are becoming even more unfriendly when my friends from church visit. The staff is still saying that I can't have visitors after 8 p.m. and that I can only have one at a time. Jerry, my roommate, and I get along just fine. He says he doesn't mind my visitors, and he's never complained. He says he likes it when my church friends drop by, and that they're good company for him too. The night nurse is even ignoring me when she comes into my room. She looks right at me when I'm talking to her and doesn't say anything. And the administrator, Mr. Cook, he came by and said I should think about moving somewhere else. I don't want to leave. I have lots of friends here. And my friends from church won't know where to find me if I move. I don't know where I'll go.
I'm so sorry to hear all this. When we spoke to Mr. Cook, he said he understood your right to have visitors 24 hours a day. And then you agreed if your roommate Jerry needed privacy, you would move your visit to another area. And when I spoke to your roommate Jerry, he said he liked the visit from your friends. He said he also felt comfortable letting you know if you needed privacy or quiet. Since Mr. Cook mentioned you should think about moving, I would like your permission to speak to him about that.
Yes, please do.
If in fact Mr. Cook is notifying you of his plan to discharge you, he can't do so immediately. You have rights and you have time.
Thank you. Please tell them that I don't want to move. I just want to see my friends.
With your permission, I'll also speak to Mr. Cook about your rights to have visitors whenever you want.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you want to come with me to speak with Mr. Cook?
No, I think you should talk to him by yourself. I'm too upset to talk to him right now. You go ahead without me. You know what to do.
Okay, I'll go by Mr. Cook's office to see if he's available right now. And if not, I'll call him and set up a meeting. So I'll keep you posted.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Earlier, with Gloria's involvement, resident Brian Brashear reached an agreement with management. He and Gloria thought the complaint was resolved, but a breakdown occurred. This time, the Ombudsman will try a different strategy and stay grounded in residents' rights and other laws that support the resident's position. The Ombudsman remains professional and respectful to everyone involved, asks for help from a supervisor when needed, and takes a break from the discussion if emotions run high. A good approach to use is the point, evidence, repeat point method. The Ombudsman should make a point, provide information that supports that point, and repeat the point again. In this next scene, Gloria speaks with the administrator, Jack Cook. His response to the problem needs to be addressed by Gloria if she hopes to de-escalate the situation and move the conversation forward. While being assertive, the Ombudsman must also be very calm, objective, and in control.
Come in.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cook.
What do you need? I was just about to head out the door.
I won't take up much of your time. Can I have a moment?
Close the door. Come on in. But I only have a moment. Here, have a seat.
I need to talk to you about Mr. Brashear.
Mr. Brashear? Again? Gloria, I thought we solved this. What is it now? No, wait, let me guess. He wants an overnight room for a guest.
No. Facility staff are not respecting his rights. He told me that facility staff continue to say that he can't have visitors after 8 p.m. and that he can only have one visitor at a time. Mr. Brashear's access to visitors must be honored, but the staff are not respecting his rights. Now, he said that they told him that he can have one visitor at a time, but that they must leave by 8 p.m. By law, residents can have visitors any time of the day. By limiting his visitors and his visitation hours, they're not respecting his rights.
Gloria, that's not what's happening here.
Mr. Brashear understands that he needs to be courteous to his roommate and to other residents, and his visitors pose no safety risk. And even though we talked about this a month ago, the issue of Mr. Brashear's rights to visitors has not been resolved. And now there's a new concern. Mr. Brashear told me that you told him that he might have to leave.
Now, I only suggested that Mr. Brashear might be more comfortable living somewhere where he can better entertain his guests. I'm well within my rights to say so, and he has every right to move. You know, if he's that unhappy, maybe he should. I think he's blowing this whole thing out of proportion. And his friends, they don't just visit. They come and they ask all these questions. How's he eating? Is he getting enough exercise? How's his blood pressure? His visitors are getting into his business and ours. We have privacy laws by which we must operate our business.
I understand you have a big responsibility to protect the privacy of the residents. And I understand that you want to run a good business. That's why I know that we can come to an understanding. In my experience, even the suggestion of discharge can feel very threatening to a person. Mr. Brashear is really concerned that you might make him leave. He's worried there are plans to move him.
There are no plans to move him out.
Well, good, because he likes it here. And his visits with his friends are very important to him. He doesn't want to have to choose between living here or seeing his friends. Now, I don't see how this issue warrants a discharge. Do you?
Gloria, like I said, there are no plans to move him out. I only suggested that he might be more comfortable in another facility. We're just not accustomed to all the visitors that come through to see him. And it's always after dinner, when everybody's winding down for the evenings. And then they're always probing the staff for information. Our staff just doesn't have time for this.
Well, I don't think his visitors intend to interfere with your operations. His roommate says that Mr. Brashear's visitors don't disturb him. In fact, he enjoys their visits too. Likewise, no one should interfere with Mr. Brashear's rights. Have you asked him if he wants staff to share information about his health?
Gloria, we are quite busy here. If it's that important to Mr. Brashear, I would assume he'd let us know.
Well, maybe you should ask him. That way you would feel more comfortable knowing if you should share or protect his information based on his direction.
Okay, Gloria, I'll ask him what he wants, and I'll speak to the staff again about being cordial to Mr. Brashear's guests.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I know you're very busy and I appreciate your help. I think Mr. Brashear feels hurt that you suggest he leave. And he needs assurance that that's not the plan. Can we go talk with him together today?
Well, like I said, I was just about to head out the door, but you know, for this, I'll stay. Okay, just give me a few minutes and I'll meet you up in his room.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
You're welcome.
Mr. Cook, a few minutes ago, you and I discussed how the staff are treating Mr. Brashear and his evening guests. We also talked about the concern that you have plans to discharge Mr. Brashear, which you said is not the case.
That's right. Mr. Brashear, I've spoken with the director of nurses and the charge nurses about your right to have visitors in the evening. And I let them know I will not tolerate any disrespect to you or your visitors. But I do need to know which visitors you want to share your private health information with. Some of them ask questions that make the nurses uncomfortable.
I don't mind any of them asking about me.
Okay, well then we need to get their names, and I'll have you sign a form that I'll put in your medical file. And then the nurses will know who they can share information with.
And they're not going to try to kick me out?
Mr. Brashear and I are both concerned about the suggestion that he move out. Mr. Brashear wants to stay.
Mr. Brashear, I was only making you aware of your options. Believe me, we want you to stay.
So you have no intentions of discharging Mr. Brashear for exercising his rights to visitors?
No. Mr. Brashear, this is your home. We consider you part of the family. If you weren't here, who'd keep me up to date on all the box scores each week?
Well, that's me.
Mr. Brashear, do you feel like this matter has been settled to your satisfaction?
Yes, I do. Thank you both for your help.
Note how the Ombudsman demonstrated her conflict resolution and negotiation skills. The administrator described concerns about privacy and staff time. The Ombudsman offered a means to address these concerns and provide a win-win for the staff and resident. Using negotiation skills, the Ombudsman focused on solving the problem and stayed positive so that a solution could be reached. As she negotiated, Gloria worked to separate individual personalities from the problem so that the discussion wasn't about likes or dislikes of personality traits. Gloria talked about the residents' natural fear of being displaced, and she carefully chose her words to avoid putting the administrator on the defensive. She also helped the administrator by making herself a willing part of the solution. This kept the conversation moving in a positive direction. Be aware that the other person in the conflict may see the situation differently from you. Not every word the person says has to be confronted. Recognize when a person is venting and let it go. Also, recognize what cannot be ignored, such as the need in this case for Mr. Brashear to be reassured he will not be discharged. Ultimately, Gloria's intervention helped to create a lasting solution for the resident. The work of an ombudsman isn't always easy. As a voice for residents, you will face challenges that your training will prepare you to handle. On behalf of the thousands of people ombudsmen help every year, thank you for being their voice. Thank you for protecting resident rights.